like to get our meeting started. We have quite a few things to go over tonight. Appreciate everybody being here tonight that could come out. First item of business would be to review the minutes from the September 7th meeting. We did not have a meeting in October. Is there any corrections, additions, deletions to the minutes? Mr. Harsh. Mr. Harsh makes a motion to approve as written. Mr. Ford gets a second on it. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we all in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that is done. Next off for item of business is to election of officers for the coming year on this committee. Open the floor for nominations for chairman. Mr. Harsh.
Nominate Dwight Jewell.
Okay. Mr. Ford.
I make a motion nomination cease. Second.
Okay. Were there any other nominations? I didn't get a chance to ask, so we do have a motion to end the nominations and elect Mr. Jewell by acclamation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I guess that's done. Next would be vice chairman. Open the floor for nominations. Jerry is, I believe. Mr. Harsh, your light's on. Did you want to?
Well, I'll nominate Jerry Ford. But I'd left it on.
Okay. All right. Mr. Harsh nominates Mr. Ford. Have a second by Ms. Atwood. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Mr. Gully. Have a motion to elect Mr. Ford by acclamation. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and then secretary.
I'll nominate Beverly.
Okay, have a nomination, Ms. Atwood for secretary. Mr. Gregory catches a second. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Mr. Ford.
Make a motion nomination cease.
Okay, we do have a motion to end the nominations and to elect Ms. Atwood by acclamation. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any opposed? Okay, so that is our slate of officers for the next year. Okay. We'll move into items to be reviewed or talked about tonight. We've had a request from the property assessor properties office. Is he here tonight? I don't see him. I thought he was going to be here to kind of explain this. I guess we can. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll try to, I'm a little bit familiar with it. I have talked to them about it, and I know the mayor's talked with him about it as well. We're on a reappraisal plan of 6 years. In that every 6 years, they have to do a reappraisal of the county, the valuations and things. What this is doing, because we're on a 6-year cycle, the state gives you an option of doing 4-year, 5-year, and 6-year. And if you're on a 6-year and they think that you've had a lot of growth or escalating property values, that they will come in and ask you to do a reassessment in the 3rd year. instead of waiting the full 6 years. And that's what's happened to us, I guess, the last maybe 2 or 3 times we've had to do that. So what he's suggesting we do is to go to a 5-year reappraisal, and then that way we won't have that 3-year forced appraisal in the center. Okay, and which is allowed by the state. It's up to the counties to do whatever, how they see fit within certain parameters. It would be in some ways beneficial in that you're not having to deal with this every 3 years. You're going to deal with it every 5 years. You're not going to have drastic changes in your property valuations on a 3-year cycle. You're going to have it on a 5-year cycle. The downside is that when you do hit that 5-year, you're going to have probably a bigger jump than you would have at the 3-year mark. Okay, that's part of the, if you're having escalating values, if you're in an inflationary cycle, particularly. There are advantages, like I said, to go into that, particularly in his office. There's advantages to go into that. That's why he's requesting it. Mayor, did I explain that? Did I miss anything? Is that kind of your understanding on it?
Yeah, that's
as well?
my understanding of how the process works and the reason for the request.
So what we have is a resolution that we drafted to put us into a 5-year cycle instead of a 6-year cycle. Got a letter here from him giving his explanation to it as well. I don't know what committees, if any, would need to go to, other than possibly budget and finance would be the only thing I could. Don't know that it would really affect. I mean, it's pretty much his decision, I guess, in his office as an elected official. Hate to, buck his wishes on it, but that's the best I can come up with. Mr. Gully, you're recognized.
So my question was, in changing this, when would you have to do an appraisal the year you change, and then it would be 5 years after that? Or does it come into play down the road at that point? Because I think our last appraisal was 2020 range. Was that correct?
We're talking about yours. I tried to explain it best I could, and we just had a question, so I'll let you.
Mike, Mr. Potts, did you hear that question? Did you hear that question?
I did not, I'm sorry.
So my question was, in the event that we made this change from the 6-year cycle to the 5-year cycle, would that require a appraisal that year that you made a change, and then the next would be 5 years after it? Or does it stay in the same cycle we're in? I think our last appraisal was 2020. Is that correct?
No, here's all this does. Next year coming up, 22 is reappraisal. In 19, we have what was called the CVU, and that's what this does. This changing this from a 6 to a 5 eliminates the CVU. And here's the state has explained this to me, and I'm gonna explain it the best I can to you guys. CVU is current value update. All right, so in a 6-year plan that we're on, every 3 years, they update us county whole on our rate or our values. So in 19, we got a raise. Everybody remembers your values went up tremendously in 19. Well, here's the end of it in 22. You're going to get another one of those this coming year. So if we go to a 5-year plan, we eliminate that CVU in the middle of the year. So our rates will stay the same longer, I guess you would say. Now, there's a chance that there's a bigger jump, I guess you would say, in times, but I'm at the thought that we're hopefully we're at the top of this thing, and we're going to kind of start leveling off and staying somewhere flat in the next few years is kind of what the state has told me. The numbers look like we're going to start kind of planing off, and we should be able to stay kind of not flat. We're still going to grow, but I don't think we're going to go as much. So Landon, I don't know if I answered your question. We had a CVU in 19 which showed up in 20 is what you saw. But this kind of does away with that is what it's doing.
If I make sure I understood, hit your button. The question I think is more, when would we start this? We would just continue with our current 6-year cycle until we hit that 6th year, and then our next cycle would start the 5-year. Is that correct?
This is the reason I wanted to do it now. This would begin this coming year. This would start in January. We're moving on. This in 22 is our reevaluation year. We will begin our 5-year plan this coming year is what we would start. And here's how it is. The 6-year plan means that we have 5 years to review the entire county to see what the values are across the county. So if there's any edits to be made, if there's any additions to be made, we have 5 years to review the whole county. What we're changing is we're going to go to a 5-year, so we'll have 4 years to review the whole county. So yes, it'll be a little more work on me, but from what I can tell in this first year, I can pick those up. We've got a computer system now that's better than it was 10, 15 years ago. And so now I can do that quicker, I guess you can say, through the vehicle, but it will begin this coming year. That's why we're trying to look at it now. And so we voted on it and got it approved. And with it being a resolution, it can go right into place. It would start with us in January.
Question. You cannot have a reassessment and a tax increase in the same year. Is that correct?
It would become effective the following year after the assessments are in. Is that correct?
And now and this is just for you guys' knowledge, knowing going forward, we're looking at our numbers, of course, with reevaluation coming up. I meet with them on Monday to get a hard copy, I guess you would say, of where our percentages are going to be. But countywide, we're looking at almost a 30% value raise this coming year in reevaluation. So, you know, everybody knows our county's grown tremendously. And so values then, and, you know, values have kind of been especially inflated this last year, but luckily they're over the last 3 years. So they're looking at those and we'll average out, but we'll have across the board, we're going to have somewhere between 25 and 30% increase probably in our values across the board now. And that's what, you know, we're talking about right there as far as tax rates and all. When they do that, they'll roll the certified tax rate back so that the, won't pay any more taxes, but values are going up. So
what is the number one advantage for changing it from 6-year to 5-year?
The number one thing that we see and what the state's telling me, one is the amount of work. The amount of work on the state's department, the amount of work in our office as far as the CVUs. When you add that CVU into play, that's another reevaluation that we have to do in our office that we could eliminate. And that takes it's just a ton of oversight from the state being involved and all the extra work. One, all the mailings that have to go out. I added money to the budget this year on our account just for the amount of mailings we'll have to go out just because of reappraisal this year. All the new updates that have to go out to all the different properties, and every single person gets an update where other times they don't get that extra update.
That was my point. There is a cost involved in these CVUs when we have to do them that we bear. So we would be eliminating that cost. Any other questions, committee? Mayor, do you have any questions? What's the thought of the committee? Do you think we need to let one of the other committees look at this, or is this ready to present to the full body? Like I say, in one way it can affect budget is the only reason I said that I could see possibly needing to go before budget and finance before it goes to the full body. But I think it's just going to be a judgment call on our part as to whether it's an either or type thing. Either we do it or we don't do it. It's, there's not a lot of room to change anything. Go ahead, Mike.
I'll just add one other thing, and this is what they called, I talked to them yesterday on the phone. We talked about it again because I told them I was meeting tonight. We're only a handful of counties that still have the 6-year plan like we have. Years prior, until, we've had so much growth Tennessee has as a state in the last 5-10 years. Years prior, you might not even have a CVU, because if you didn't have more than 10% growth, you didn't have to worry about it. Well, now we're seeing that on a regular basis. So that's one of the things. They see this as something that Tennessee's going to have to deal with, and that was one of the reasons that they suggested as well.
My understanding, just about all the counties are on a 5-year cycle. Some of the larger counties are actually on the 4-year cycle. Yeah, that's pretty normal.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to go ahead and move this to the full body. So I want to make that in the form of a motion that we move this to the body.
Have a motion by Mr. Ferguson and a second by Mr. Ford to send this to the full body in this month's agenda. Was that, are you, okay. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I just want to make sure that.
That's correct, because I think that this is a pretty cut dry issue. We can understand that.
Is there any other discussion? I want to make sure everybody understands what we're doing. Mr. Ford, you're recognized.
I don't see it's a big deal either way you go with it, because all it's doing is eliminating some of the work that the state's got to do. And that's probably one of the big reasons they're looking at it. As far as it cost wise, it might save a few dollars in the long run, but I don't see any problem with it whatsoever.
Thank you for those comments. Do you have any idea of roughly what you think it costs for us to go through that 3rd year? I think it was $3,500.
That's what I was fixing to say. Just looking back from Mr. Bird's, back in 19, I went back and looked for the 20, and it seemed like it was around $3,000 to $3,500. And that's the reason that I raised my budget for this next year, because I knew it was something coming.
That was my recollection. I just wanted to make sure that was on line with that. Any further discussion or questions? Okay, we do have a motion to send this to the full body and duly second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we'll take it up this month's business. Thank you, Mr. Fox. If my voice starts quivering, I'm up here shivering, so I'm not scared, I'm just cold. Next is the opioid settlement resolution. I know Mayor Chambers has talked to us about this on several occasions, and it is something that great incentive from the state. I know the state is very much in pushing for this, and I'll let you explain it, Mayor. I think.
Yeah, as I've
Please.
said a couple of times in front of, I can't remember if it's committees. I know I think I discussed it once, maybe last month at the county commission meeting, that the state of Tennessee is one of numerous states that have sued various opioid manufacturers or distributors. And they've got some that are in the pipeline to settle. I think it's actually been approved by the district court. They're just waiting for the exact distribution of the money, and it's going to depend. If you hit a certain number of counties inside your state, you'll actually get a larger share of the funds than some that don't. So the Attorney General's office has worked with the Tennessee County Services Association and some cities or counties that had their own suits against the manufacturers, and they've all come to the agreement on this settlement resolution. So if they can get a certain number of counties to join this, I believe the share of the opioid settlement goes up, I think, $60 million. So it is a fair good amount of money. And the state did pass a law earlier this year to divvy up that money. And how it's set up is once that payment comes to the state of Tennessee, 15% right off the top goes into what's called a subdivision fund, and that gets distributed among all the cities and all the counties and any qualifying city. 70% goes into what they call an abatement fund that has to be used for programs to abate the use of opioids in the counties. And of that 70%, 35% is distributed among the counties that have participated in the settlement, and each county gets to determine how their share of the funds is spent as long as it meets that abatement qualification. And then the remaining 15% goes to the state of Tennessee's general fund. So if we do join this, there is more money to be gotten from the county. Now, the formula to divvy it up is very convoluted, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know all of it right off the top. Some of it comes into your opioid rates inside your counties, population. There's a lot of the various figures. In all honesty, we're probably not going to get a whole lot of money, but if we join the settlement and they hit that maximum number, we will increase the amount of funds we're going to get, along with all the other counties and cities that are qualified in the state of Tennessee. So I think this is something we need to do. It's really going to help us. The big savings I see is we could put in some of these programs we've mentioned about in the jail to reduce the recidivism rate. You can put in some kind of drug counseling or something in your jails, hopefully reduce your recidivism rate, and that's going to give you savings on your jail costs. So that's where I see the biggest impact of these funds. So I brought it to the county commission at the request of the state. And I would urge you to vote for this because it's going to be nothing but a benefit to the county. It doesn't cost us anything.
Thank you. We did cover this in the meeting I was in Memphis. I had it in my notes to go over it as well, but this is actually kind of patterned after much like the tobacco settlement money, except where a lot of that money went individually to property owners and things. This money is going to be going to the states and then to the county and municipalities. It is billions of dollars. Now, how much of it the state of Tennessee is going to get, how much of it's going to dribble down to us, like the mayor said, that is yet to be realized. But if we do become a part of this and participate in this, it almost assuredly guarantees us to receive more monies, or to be in a position to receive more monies, as the mayor explained. So from what I know about it, from what I've had from the state, this is absolutely something we need to do, in my opinion. Do we have any questions?
Just a quick thought. You said 60 million. Is that what you said?
I was trying to think off the top of my head. I've been reading through here and I didn't see what the increase was. For some reason, that amount sticks on top of in my head. But I will say, if they can get the maximum numbers to counties to join this, the state's going to receive more than 613 million over 18 years. So that's, if you get that maximum number, it's going to go up more than the 613 million.
It's a substantial amount of money, but when you start divvying it out, it may not be, but
That's
yes.
where I was headed. 600 million, you're talking what, 15%, that's what, $90 million? Is what we're to 95 counties is what I was getting at there in this case, I thought. Exactly.
I think looking at the numbers I've got here in this document, if we can get that number of counties and cities to join this, of the 35% that goes directly to the counties, it's going to be approximately $150 million. So obviously, if we just can maximize, recover those funds, that's going to be a benefit to all the counties and qualifying cities across the state to try to address the opioid epidemic in their communities.
Mayor, did they give you any stipulation as what has to be done with this money?
You have to use it for what they call abatement purposes, which is basically, it's like drug and alcohol counseling, mainly drug counseling and those kind of things, or other programs you might be able to put in place. As long as you can tie it back to we're trying to abate the use of opioids in your community, it's kind of up to each community to structure that specific thing in there. And of that money that goes into what they call the Abatement Fund, there is going to be a little bit more strings to it, though looking through the proposed uses of it, there's almost nothing I can think of that wasn't already on the list. So it's going to be up to each community to determine how they can best spend it, but it's pretty wide open as far as the things they threw out there you could use it for. That, like I said, there was nothing I can think of that would benefit the county that was not already on the list.
That answer your question, Mr. Mr. Gully, do you have another question?
No, I was just gonna say, recommend to send this one to the full body. I don't really see a committee other than maybe law enforcement. It sounds like that it might possibly have need of.
I don't really even think it falls with them. I would just send it to the
That's
full
what I said.
commission.
That's where I was thinking myself. Make a motion to send this to full body.
Have a motion by Mr. Gully to move it full body. I believe Mr. Taylor had a second up there. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? Okay. Motion is to move it to the full body at this month's meeting. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we will take it up this month. Next one we have, item C is RFQ for civil engineering firm. Mayor?
As we've had several projects come through, it's become pretty abundant and clear to myself and Mr. Salee that if we had had a contract with an engineering firm in place, some of these projects that has taken us a little bit longer than it probably should have to get together would probably been a little bit more expedited. Looking at the highway department, they have an agreement with an engineering firm, and so does the water department. So this is something I think would be a benefit to us. And if you look down, the next item is kind of related to this. The health department has asked us to look at using some of the American Rescue Funds to expand the building because they had to bring in some storage buildings to store their COVID-19 supplies, and they need a little bit more room for social distancing purposes and examination room. So I think having a civil engineering firm that we could call when these items pop up would be very beneficial to us, and we wouldn't be piecemealing it like we currently are. So I would ask if this could be sent to the county commission for their consideration.
Will this take a resolution to, or just our tacit approval to send out the RFQ? How do you see us proceeding with this?
At this point, I think it'd just be your approval to send out the RFQ, because once you send out the RFQ, I would have to come back to get approval to actually sign the contract based on the terms that the winning firm comes to with us. So right now, I think just approval of it and then the final approval of any proposed contracts once the firm is chosen.
Would the professional selections committee do the final selection on this, you think?
I would suggest that we do send it to them, since we have an ordinance that says any grants that are gone through the county go to the professional services selection committee. If we follow a procurement process like we've done in the past regarding grants, this will qualify us. We can go ahead and use the firm we choose in any grant applications in the future, as long as we meet those requirements. So I would advise that we follow the procedure we've done in other grant applications, and I think that'll make us qualifying to use that firm going forward in grants.
You may have already read this out. This is not in our packet here today. I know it was an add-on. The RFQ itself, request for quotes here. What qualifications? I'm sorry. So it's not quotes. Request for qualifications. So
Yes, sir. Engineering firms, you can't ask them a price, and I think that's actually in state law. You can't ask them a price for their services. It's supposed to be based on the quality. You're supposed to pick the most qualified firm for what you're putting in front of them. That's why until you pick the firm, you don't even get into what their rates are going to be, because you're not allowed to under state law.
There is no money involved with it at this point. You're asking we need a civil engineering firm. We're asking firms to send us your qualifications so we can make a selection to enter into talks with them about doing this. What are some of the things that you see that we would need them for, or that we've needed them for? You mentioned that it might have expedited some of the projects, such as
I'd say the HVAC system in this building, possibly the windows in this building, the expansion of the highway, of the health department. There's some work on some parking lots I think would have been beneficial to us. The sidewalks, though, we did get a firm for that. If we'd had the general civil engineering firm, the sidewalks had already been part of that as well. It's basically for the public works department. As I said, the water department already has one. And the highway department already has one, so I would restrict this to public works because that pretty much covers everything else the county would be doing. It would be under the public works department.
Mr. Clarity?
Do you know how many firms you're planning on sending this to?
Well, you put it in the newspaper and the firms have a software they use, and I've been advised in the past, if we're going to put it in one, they've told me the Gallatin newspaper, because they get a lot of returns on that. But we also have a new system the county's using called Vendor Registry that a lot of firms like that are on there, and you can post it on there and it'll blast it out to all of them. So we should be able to cover pretty much any firm that would be interested. But as far as other firms, yeah, I can probably think about 3 or 4 that have contacted me in the past that I've told them in the future, if we had something come up, I'd send it to them.
Is this going statewide or nationwide or?
This system, the one we've used in the past, or we tried to keep them somewhat local so that we have, if they have an office nearby, most of the ones we've dealt with in the past have offices in Franklin, Brentwood, Nashville, something like that. So I'd try to keep it so that they have somebody that can come out and look at what we're actually doing versus if they're in another state, that might be a little difficult.
Any other questions? My question, once again, how do you want us to proceed with this? Do you want us just to give you our blessing tonight, or do you want us to take it to the full body? And how, if we take it to the full body, will it be presented as a resolution or what?
It just basically need to be shown on the minute, reflected on the minutes, just authorizing my office to issue the RFQ for the engineering services, sending it to the professional services selection committee to pick a firm, and then they would bring, once we negotiate a contract, we have to bring that contract back for approval to the county commission.
At our regular meeting?
Yes, sir, at a regular
Okay.
meeting. It won't be a call meeting, it'll be a regular meeting.
Okay, but not this body, not this group.
No,
The
sir, it'd be
full
the full county commission.
That's what I wanted to make sure we were clear on. Okay, where and how will we put it in the agenda? If it's not a resolution or an ordinance, will it be covered in your report or just as an action item?
You can put it under new business. It doesn't have to be specifically be a resolution or ordinance. You can put it under new business as a separate item.
Okay. Just want to make sure we were clear on that. Everybody okay with that? Okay. All right, we'll add that to the agenda in that way. You want to cover this health department expansion again a bit? You touched on it.
Yes, sir. We have a new health department director. He covers Trousdale County and Wilson County. And he had been up and looked at the building, come to my office and was speaking to me about some of the needs of the health department. And if you've been up there and looked, they've got a little shed they put out back as well as a trailer they've got set on that side. Well, they had to bring those in for their COVID-19 supplies. So they're outside the building. And he asked if we could look in expanding the building specifically for storage having to do with their medical supplies, and more particularly their COVID-19 supplies, that being their testing supplies and vaccines, and one more examination room so that they have sufficient space. He said that will allow them to free up some spaces for social distancing purposes. So looking at the American Rescue Fund, some of the training we've been through, one of the things that specifically talks about is capital improvements to buildings, specifically public health buildings. So I think this is pretty much on point, and the justification for it is a need to expand specifically for COVID-19 testing and vaccination. So I think this is a very good expenditure of those funds. And I think once we're audited by the federal government, the justification is there to show that this was something that was needed.
That building, 20 years, that building
I don't remember the exact age. It seems to be something like that.
or more? 20 or 25 years, maybe even. I remember when we did it some time ago. We haven't expanded it. I do know that they gained an office when the soil scientists moved their offices out back to Cookville, but he had such a small space in there, it was really not a lot of gain for him. But I could see where this would be going into the future, needed for sure. And I hate those little things sitting outside ticky-tacky around the building. It just It just so junks it up, Mr. Gully.
My question there was, is that property already available for this expansion, or is that gonna be property that's gonna have to be changed in some way?
There is a little bit behind the building, which is where we're looking to expand. It'll be directly behind the building. There will have to be a transfer of some small part of property from the highway department to the county generally to do that. And there is one other thing I forgot to add. One other thing they were asking is if we could put some kind of awning or carport or something so that if they're doing vaccinations, they can be under a cover if it's raining or something like that. Whereas right now they've kind of been standing outside in the rain trying to give vaccinations. So that was another thing they asked us to look at. But as far as your question, no, there had to be a transfer of some part of property from the highway department to the county to expand out the back of that building. I have spoken to the highway department already. Mr. Scruggs is fine with doing that. He understands the need for it.
So it is already Charles County Highway Department property that we're talking about right there? Okay.
I think what they're thinking is going out the back of the building, just extending it out. That's my understanding of what they've talked about in times past. And
Yes, sir. It's going to go directly, if you're looking at it north and south, it's going to go directly north outside the existing back of the building. We're not proposing to go over to where the tobacco warehouse or the engineering firm is. It's going to go directly back towards the highway department's office building.
Mr. Ford.
You have any kind of an idea of a cost on this, Mayor?
I don't have an idea of cost right now. Just he and I have discussed it. And that's another reason why I think we had an engineering firm. Once we go down that road, we can get expedite cost instead of having to go out. If as we're going through these American Rescue Funds, if it comes up some kind of capital improvement and we don't have one that we've got a contract with, every time we come up with a project, we're going to have to put out an RFQ for an engineering firm. So you could potentially have several firms doing it, though in actuality, you're going to be putting out RFQs and picking the same firm every time just because they're familiar with the county. It's just going to expedite using some of these funds as we go through the process.
Do you have any idea how large an expansion they want?
I don't know. Generally, he was putting together some numbers based on, he was working with the State Department of Health to try to generate some numbers as far as what they were looking at size wise, but I don't have those right now. It was not a tremendous amount of space adding on to the back of it, so he didn't think the cost would be very high. He just said there was a little bit expansion of storage from what they're currently got in another examination room, which the examination rooms are really not that large. So he didn't think it'd be a huge amount of square footage added onto the building.
So what are you really asking for tonight?
At this point, I'm just letting, this is more an FYI to let you know this is a concern that came up and another justification for the civil engineering firm, and also that is a project that will most likely be coming to the commission in the future for expenditure of the American Rescue Funds.
I think this was more informational, Mr. Clarity.
Before we do anything, I mean, we need some numbers and go to budget and finance, but
I think he was making us aware of the need and the request for it, but there's not any specifics. It's the kind of thing that there again, if we had our own engineering firm already hired, we wouldn't have to try to bid out engineering for an expansion like that. You'd already have someone in place to put those numbers together for you. So that's one of our justifications for wanting to go to entertain a firm to do that sort of thing. They do need more room down there. From day one, they've needed storage space. Every time I do a fire inspection, I had to write them up because they're junking up the electrical panels and things of that nature because they just didn't have anywhere to put the stuff. So.
And I would just say for any expenditure of the American Rescue Funds, it has to go through the normal budget process. So any expenditures will go through that process. It's just right now, the federal government hasn't released the final rules. So everybody's still working on the interim rule and trying to figure out what that's going to mean and plan their projects. But yes, any expenditure of funds has to go through the normal budget process.
Any other questions on this one? I think, like I say, just trying to let us know what we had coming down the pipe, coming at us, or a possibility or a request. Next thing we have down here is Veteran Service Office MOU. As many of you realize, when Ms. Russell resigned as our Veteran Service Officer, Director, whatever her title was, that office has been basically vacant. The mayor had indicated to us that he thought that Sumner County could pick up the slack from that. And Mayor, I'll let you explain what this MOU is. I think at least I can't speak for everybody, but my understanding was that they were going to do this. I didn't know we were going to be paying them to do this. The way this is written, we're not really losing our office per se. We're providing them an office, and the expenses and things here, we're paying them to come staff this office. My thinking is, if we're going to be paying out money, I'd like to pay it out to somebody in our county that knows our people and will take care of our people. But go ahead and explain it, Mayor, and let us know what you've got worked out with them and what you're asking us to do, please.
Well, after Ms. Russell resigned, I spoke to the State Department of Veterans Affairs, and they came to my office and spoke to me. There is a federal requirement to have a certified veteran service officer. They have to do 20 hours a week. He looked at our veteran population and thought we did not have the population to justify that expenditure. He used an example, I believe Clay and Jackson County share a VSO officer, and so he suggested we look into that. He mentioned some counties. I had spoken to the VFW commander in the past about surrounding counties and what his thoughts were about those services. He thought Sumner County had a good officer, and when the gentleman from the state mentioned Sumner County, I asked him if he would reach out to them, see if that's something they'd be interested in. They were interested in it. We had another meeting with the VFW commander and American Legion. We discussed what the proposal was, which would be the Sumner County would be here 2 days a month. The first day would be an in-office for any visits to come into the office. The second day would be an outreach. So they would go to area nursing facilities, assisted living facilities, any organizations that may be interested in learning more about veteran services and just generally promoting veteran services inside the county. They were going to keep track and submit a report to my office monthly so that we can see if there's an increase in veterans using the Veteran Service Office, and then going to use that as we go into next budget year to see if it is worthwhile for us to go ahead and hire somebody in that position going forward. That's where the real question is right now. In the past, they had not really had that many veterans taking advantage of that service. And so this is a way to try to bridge us to next budget year, see if we can increase the interest in those services, and see going in the next budget year if it's worth it to go ahead and hire somebody to do that 20 hours a week versus contracting out with Sumner County. And the rates you have in that proposed agreement is to basically compensate them for their cost and their labor cost and mileage. And for the assistant in Sumner County, it'd be $250 a day. If it's the director that comes, it's $350 a day, though my understanding it'll usually be the assistant instead of the director.
So what is the total cost going to be per week, per month? I'm a little fuzzy on the numbers here.
But if you do 350 times 2, which is what we used to do our budget amendment, we assume 350 for the director times 2, that's $700 a month. And that's, if you look at the amount we asked for in the budget amendment, I think it's in here.
So where is the 250 coming in?
The 350 is the rate for the VSO director of Sumner County. Her assistant is the 250. No, if the assistant comes, it's 250. If the director comes, it's 350. Well, my understanding is speaking to her.
Why would the director be coming instead of the assistant?
Well, my understanding is that it's normally going to be the assistant and not the director, but there may be days if they're on vacation that week or need to swap out for some reason, the director would cover the cover that day, but usually it's going to be the assistant. But for budgeting purpose, to make sure we covered, we went ahead and based it on the director cost.
Mr. Ford.
Can we not find nobody in the county to do this?
Well, again, speaking with the state, they looked at our veterans numbers and the amount of visits we've had in the past and suggested that we look into this to try to cover our bases for now. They didn't feel that hiring somebody for that position when they got to do 20 hours a week, they didn't think there was going to be enough business, or I hate to say business, but enough clients coming in to justify the expenditure for the county. They thought this approach, which several other counties have used, that he specifically mentioned Clay and Jackson County, would give us a VSO officer. They would work to, their outreach is going to be something new that's never been done in the county before. So they would try to build that interest in using the VSO. And then we would, if we got an increase in that, then going in the next budget year, we would look at hiring our own VSO and then ending the contract with Sumner County.
Do I understand this right? This is for 2 days a month?
Yes, sir. It's 2 days a month. The first day would be an in-office visit. So they'll be here all day. They're going to use what used to be Debbie Jenkins' old office at the administration building. And then the second day a month would be outreach. So they could set up meetings with various community organizations, go to the assisted living facilities, try to assist any veterans that are in there or any other organizations or places inside the county to try to build up interest in using the Veteran Services Officer. And again, we did have meetings with the VFW commander and American Legion commander, and both of them were agreeable to the 2 days a month to try to build up the interest and then take a look at it going in the next budget year.
What are we doing currently now that we have a vacancy? What's going on today, tomorrow? What happened last week? What's the situation as it exists right now?
We have been referring them. They did say we could have them contact her office right now if they needed assistance. And also the state has given us information that we're giving them the State Department of Veteran Affairs to contact also.
So if a veteran today came and you said, hey, contact the state, could they go to Gallatin and receive the same services that we're talking about? Gallatin, come here. I mean, if a veteran said, I need some help and I need it now, we can't provide it for them because we don't have the capabilities. But if they went to Gallatin right now, would Gallatin charge them to help them?
No, they can't charge them. So they would assist them, but the Sumner County residents are going to take place in line before the Travis County residents.
So with that in mind, have we talked to our local veterans here in Travis County? Have we talked to the membership there about what their thoughts were? How many veterans do we have in the county? At one time we were in the 70 something? I'm not sure. Do you know that figure?
The actual veteran population, they figured of pre-census numbers was about 420. As far as members of the VFW or American Legion, I think the VFW is getting down to almost single digits. And the American Legion's not much better in my understanding. But yes, I did speak to both of those commanders who have floated it to their memberships, my understanding, and everybody was agreeable to these terms as a way to bridge us to try to build that interest in the VSO office to show in the future, going in the next budget year, to show that it would be justified expenditure of local tax funds.
I would say that this, not having this office filled, we had a lot of questions about it, or I had a lot of questions about it as to why and when we were and that sort of thing. The conversations I've had with people, even before before you brought this MOU, and I talked specifically about our situation at the Veterans Committee meeting of TCSA last week. And everybody there said, you need your own office, you need your own personnel that know your people, that veterans are reticent to go somewhere else. They don't travel well, they don't want to travel. If they don't have friendly faces that they know helping them, they won't ask for the help a lot of times. We do know that there are some additional things in the state legislature. There was several bills and things passed last year to help veterans. I think veterans are finally getting a little bit more of a notice and fair shake, shall we say. But we do have an aging population of veterans that are going to need these services. And I'm absolutely not in favor of doing away with the office. As far as staffing it, this may be a good alternative, but I'd like for us to, I wish there was some way that we could just look at this whole issue of, so we had firm answers of how many veterans we have and what services are going to be coming down the pike and what needs we're going to have for this. And I think that this is a big deal. And I think if we don't handle it properly, it can blow up in our faces. Is all I want to say. Mr. Ford.
Personally, I think we're doing our veterans a big injustice by asking them to go to Gallatin if emergency comes up, and these guys only be here like 2 days a month. Maybe a better situation than what we got, but I think we do better to keep it here at home. Find somebody, surely somebody can take it, and somebody in the county's got to know the people better, understand them. I don't know what's right and what's wrong in it, but I think it'd be better to keep it here at home.
As we originally had the office open, it was 20 hours per week. Is that what I heard?
That's the federal requirements, 20 hours per week. She was actually doing 16 hours per week because I didn't know that it was a 20-hour requirement, or it should have been doing 20 hours a week.
Okay.
And also at the end of her time in the office, when they opened up the new facility in Gallatin, she said her veterans coming into her office dropped in there some days she'd get 0 because they were going to Gallatin.
I would like to see how we do this to maybe reach out to our community first. I think what Mr. Ford said is right on cue. That's why I was wondering, did it cost them anything to go to Gallatin? I mean, do we need to fund Gallatin, or we need to keep this money here at home? Maybe we reach out to, we just exhaust all efforts that we have and we try to find somebody here that's willing to do it. Maybe we find them, maybe we don't, but I'd rather it be here. And I don't know how you go about doing that. Maybe you should ask for a search committee to try to reach out to the veterans. And I'm sure it won't take long. I know Gary Walsh is a veteran. Maybe he knows somebody. Maybe Richard Johnson's a veteran. Maybe he knows somebody. It's just kind of connect the dots, but I'd like for us to at least exhaust all efforts that we could to then say, guys, if we went to Gallatin because we didn't have any option. But I don't know if we've exhausted all of our options. Now, we've talked to the state, and the state has told us what they mandate and that we need something, and we already know that we need something. But I would like to see us, just personally, if we could just exhaust all efforts here to talk to the membership here. And that's just what my thoughts are. So could we maybe, I don't know how you put a committee together like that. I don't know, but that's just a thought.
So, Mr. Cully.
So when Amber left this position, as we had before, what was her current pay rate per hour?
I don't know off the top of my head. I want to say around 12.50, somewhere around in there. And also, if you look in what's going to the budget and finance about the increase in county employees, there was an increase suggested for that office. What it was exactly off the top of my head, I don't remember, but I do know that there was an increase in that position as part of the compensation study.
Mr. Ferguson, if I heard what you said, you're asking for us to form a committee to look into this and make a recommendation. Is that?
Well, maybe maybe a committee that studies this and reaches out to the local community veterans and get some input from them. Surely we may have overlooked somebody. So yeah, I don't know how we formed that, but that's kind of the concept I'm talking about right now. Could we create some type of a committee that would reach out, or somebody, someone within our body to reach out to them, because we're the ones who's going to have to make this decision as to where it goes. You're talking about an assistant. If the assistant shows up twice, that's $500 a month. That's $6,000 a year. And if you do the other way, $700, that's $8,400 a year.
If
Yeah,
y'all
so-
think it's a good idea and you'll authorize me to do it, I'll call a special committee. And we'll try to, name some people to it that can give us the answers that we need.
In all due respect, this is something under the mayor's office. If you want me to put out a job description and take applications, we can do that, but there's not going to be a committee.
Well, now, wait a minute, Mayor, can this body not call a committee anytime it wants to search something?
If you're wanting to see who's available in the county, and it's up to me to hire this person,
Well,
because
we just-
this doesn't come back to the county commission as for an appointment. This is an employee under the county mayor's office.
This is
So we could put out, if you want to hire somebody locally, we can put out a notice. I think we advertise for 2 weeks, put it in the newspaper, put it online, do all that stuff, take applications, and then go through it.
well, this body has the ability to ask people if they'd be interested in the job. We're not actually sending out applications for the job. We're just saying, can we find somebody here locally that would be interested in it if we can do that locally? If the point comes that we find some people that say, yes, I might be interested, then you can advertise, do it. But I don't think that we should be limited to what we're able to do. I mean, we can create a committee, can we not, Chairman?
I think we can call a special committee for anything. What I thought we were doing was to look at the office, the necessity of the office, and the alternatives of possibly farming it out like the mayor is suggesting. To look at the big picture of it, whether we need it at all, whether we, just want to say, I'm sorry, we don't have an office. You go to Gallatin, or you go to Lebanon, or you go to Nashville, or you go wherever you want to go. But I'm not in favor of that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, I think that we need to, study it. I appreciate all the effort that the mayor has put into this MOU and talking with Sumner County, and I appreciate Sumner County's desire or agreement to try to help us with it. I'm not saying that I don't. I just like for us to study this whole issue, because it has been such an issue in times past. I was just thinking, I wasn't talking about a permanent committee. I was just talking about a study committee. Name a few people that can give us some hard facts of how many we got, how many we need to service, why we would want it here, why we would not want it here, so that we had more input in making this decision.
Part of the purpose of the memorandum of understanding of what they're going to do is try to go out and do outreach to increase interest in using the VSO, and they're going to give you the data to base that decision on when you're going in the next budget year. They're going to say, okay, if you were doing 2 veterans a week, or 2 veterans coming in, versus they did outreach on that stuff, and now you've got 10 to 15 veterans that are wanting to use it, and then you've got an increase in the office, you're going in the next budget year and say, okay, now we've got this hard and fast data that we've looked at, and we can make that decision on.
That's the purpose of the committee, was to get us some hard and fast data. Can I be frank? If we present this, I'm afraid it would be voted down. And I would like for us to study it so that if we came back, a committee came back with a recommendation to go with this, I think it would be, I hate to use the word more palatable, but I'm afraid it would be maybe more palatable. We all know that there are underlying issues, and that I don't want this to get embroiled in that. So I felt like a study committee, get some people from the community, some people that are familiar with Veterans Affairs, commissioners like Mr. Walsh that is a veteran, Ms. Russell that has worked in that office, and some people in the community, maybe the people that you've talked to, but just pull them together in a committee. Mr. Davis. So I think, I'm not talking about a huge committee, but I think, 5 to 7 people, and that have some idea of what this office does and the need for it, and to give us some hard data and some recommendations on it. I don't think that's I don't see that that's in any way, I don't see that that's in any way stepping on your toes or trying to get into the role of the mayor's office or anything like that. I think it's a part of our role as well. I mean, you were elected, we were elected by the same people. We sometimes come at the same problems from different directions, hopefully to come up with the best solution. So that was, I thought that was what.
It is.
Okay,
Chairman.
I just, that's what I envisioned from the conversation we've had. It's up to y'all to do what you think would be the best thing to do. Mr. Clarity, you're recognized.
I'm looking at these numbers, none of them match up with the way these dollars are. The first email we got that I looked at last night is completely different from this one. None of the numbers on it matches. If you're looking at $350 a day for 2 times a month, that's $700. That's $8,400 a year. Where's this 5,000 coming in at? The email I got yesterday, we was looking at something like $16,800 a year.
The email you got yesterday, well, there was a change because it was figured on 2 days a month, 2 days a week, not 2 days a month. So that was why there's a decrease from what email you got yesterday. Because I went in and reviewed it with Amy and she had figured it on 2 days a week. And I said, no, that's incorrect. It's 2 days a month. So that's why there's a decrease. But there's already money in there to help pay this. And that's why you're moving it. Basically, you're moving it from what would have been a VSO's pay salary to a contract line item. So you're just moving funds that's already been allocated from one line item to another. It's not an increase in funding. It's just reallocating one funding from one line to another.
So the 16,800 is going to drop down to 5,000?
Yes, you're going to move 5,000 because it's going to start in January. So it's going to be January to July 1st.
And then it's going to pick back up to 17,000 roughly.
Let's see here, if you budgeted on 700 a month times 12, that's $8,400 a year.
So if I'm under the correct understandings here, we do have that opportunity that we could look at. I really like the idea of us doing some research, and by us, I mean this county, not us individually, but us doing some research on what is the need here. I know Amber struggled to have time to do it, and that's the reason that she left. I also know that Amber was struggling with her job with having a set time that she was there every day. So there might have been more need for that position than what she was able to do at that point. Did as best she could, not saying that in any way against her, but certainly with Ms. Russell, Mr. Walsh, Mr. Davis being part of this commission and being veterans themselves, if we could come up with a 5-member committee, maybe we can bring in 2 from the community somewhere. I'd like for this committee here to look at forming a subcommittee for that route, 5 members that would look into this for us, and to what we can, we've got the building, we've got the place for it. That part's already there. The office was already there. I'd much rather someone that works 20 hours a week with our veterans here that's going to know them, stay with them, and know their needs than it would be 2 days a month. That's going to, and I understand that these people at 2 days a month right now are just looking at trying to help and benefits. And by that, I mean going out and farming out to say, hey, here's what it can do. Here's what it can do. But I'd rather us look at it right now on our own. If we can put that in the form of motion, it's fine with me that we make a 5-committee subcommittee. First off, consisting of those 3 members of our commission that are veterans.
I would like to do, I think you're right on cue. So that's what we've been talking about. I'd like for somebody here to make the motion that we do that special committee to look at, I think we owe it to our veterans here to have their input as we work to try to help them. So if that's a motion, or do you want to make a motion?
I'll put in the motion.
All right, and I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to form a study committee. What I would do is I will talk to these people and see if they would agree to serve on this committee. I will bring you the names of people that would be, if you have somebody as a suggestion, let me know, and I'll be glad to talk to them, Mayor, if there's somebody you think specifically would need to be
Nathan
on.
Vaughn, American Legion Commander, and David Chambers, the VFW Commander.
They are the ones
Maybe two
that
other
I
members.
absolutely had thought we would bring into it, and I'd like to also have maybe some further citizens input. But I'll bring you some names at our commission meeting, form a resolution to form the study committee and have some suggestions or some people that have agreed to do it, if that's okay. But we do have a motion in the second to take this to study committee and for us to form one and get those things together for our next meeting. Any further discussion on this? Mr. Ford?
I think we owe it to our local people. I mean, it's stuff like, many of them have foreign countries involved that we could have freedom years. Good goodness. We can come up with something to take care of that.
I agree 100%. We do have a motion and a second. Is any further discussion on it? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we'll send it to a study committee and we'll put that before the body. And if the body sees fit to do that, we will proceed with it. And I will have us a list of names to look at that. I don't think this is anything that's going to be a lengthy process. I don't think it's going to take them months and months to try to research this and get us some idea of what's going on. And so we'll proceed that way at this point. Yeah, so we'll have plenty of time for them to get done. Yeah. Also, F, Animal Shelter Director compensation.
Yes, our animal shelter staff both resigned. That was in August. We advertised for this position in the Vidette. We only got one applicant. And he turned the position down, stating it was not paying enough. So we put it back out there again. We've interviewed 5 candidates total, 3 of whom were qualified for the position, and all 3 have turned it down due to it not paying enough. Right now, it currently paid, this fiscal year is budgeted at $12.50, and they're wanting more than that. So go to $15 an hour is the number I think we could get somebody in that position.
Who's handling that position currently?
There is no one in that position. We haven't been able to fill it. We've advertised it, interviewed several people, offered it to 3 people, and they've all 3 turned it down due to the compensation being, in their estimation, too low.
So we don't have any animals in the shelter?
We do, and Public Works has been doing it. Myself, Teresa Turner, works for EMS, she's on the animal shelter board. She's been doing it, as well as Renee Pridemore from my office. We've been going up there and taking care of the animals. I was actually up there last night with one we've got. His name's Loki. He's probably a year old. He's very friendly if anybody's interested in a dog.
So basically what this is a budget amendment to increase the line item for the salary and the company expenses. Is this to be, how many hours a week is this position? Is this still just a part-time?
No, the part-time was the assistant position. The director was a full-time up to 40 hours a week position.
Okay. Is this going to be enough to get both of those people to that rate, or is this
There's
just
already-
to cover one?
This is going to be in addition to what's already been budgeted. So this will be added to the director position. There's already sufficient funds there for the part-time position because it has not been filled since August. So you've not been spending any money from that position. And so this should be more than enough to cover that.
Chairman, I'd like to recommend you move that to the Budget and Finance Committee because before the evening's over, there's going to be probably some more discussion about compensation in other areas. And I think it'd probably be best if they tackled it all at one time.
Well, I think the immediacy of it needs to go to Budget and Finance this month. We'll look at it as a budget amendment this month. And that, Mr. Have a motion and second to send it on to Budget and Finance for this month to try to get it on this month's agenda. Any further discussion on it? I'm sorry, Mayor, I was not aware that we had lost those people. I don't know, maybe y'all brainstorm. If you know somebody that might be interested in doing that, please tell them to please get in touch with the mayor. And we will proceed with this to Budget and Finance. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Thank you, Mayor. The application for traffic signal modernization grant program, the TSMP grant.
Yes, so
Mayor.
the state of Tennessee has a program. It's called Traffic Signal Modernization Grant Program. It's to help local governments improve their traffic signals. Our current signals are kind of limited in their capabilities. This would be upgrade those equipment. Specifically, what would be the best is upgrading the control box. We are currently had several issues with these lights. Like I said, they're older. We haven't had to replace a couple here lately because they've been hit by trucks going through there that the light was a little bit too low, so they're raising that up. And also with the improvement going on at the McMurray and Broadway intersection, it's going out to bid next month to improve that into a four-way traffic intersection with new lights and everything. If we improve the lights at the McMurray and Andrews Avenue intersection with new equipment, we should be able to do traffic signal optimization in the morning and in the evening, which should help us with our traffic backups we've been having. It should move the traffic through there much quicker. Our current equipment, you can't program it to do that. So these new boxes will be programmable so that you can have that in the morning, in certain hours in the morning, certain hours in the evening, that the lights will be green longer to get the traffic through. And then outside of that, it'll go back to its normal cycling.
So you're asking just to be able to apply for this grant. I see that the grant application deadline is December 1st. Do we have the application already in the process of being?
Pretty much the grant application is filling in a little bit of information, but the biggest part of it was the budget that's attached to your documents here. That was the biggest part of it. The rest of it's just filling in information about who they report to, who they need to call, and this kind of thing. So it's not really in-depth grant application. The biggest part of it is the spreadsheet that you have to fill in the numbers and get your cost to submit. And this grant, it does go up to a maximum of $100,000, and that is complete 100% in the state of Tennessee with no county match.
That was my next question, is what was the match on it? This is 100%. So I think we should absolutely apply for this because we know we have need for it. We've had problems with these lights. They've been up there for a long time. Mr.
Make a motion, send it to the full body.
Have a motion to send it to the full body, second by Mr. Ford. Any further discussion or questions? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we will take it up this month so we can meet this deadline. That goes the items that we had to be reviewed. Mayor, did you have anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. I would like to briefly update y'all on a few things that I found out last week at the TCSA conference. Two big issues that could affect us greatly. One, there is a proposal by TDOT to the legislature for us to bear the cost and do the installation of all driveway tiling, even on state highways. Currently, we only do it on county maintained roads, but TDOT is wanting the counties to take this over. This would be a great expense to us because they are not just going to expect Bill to go out there and say, hey, it looks like an 18-incher. They're going to want engineering on every one of them like they currently do. It's just going to make us financially responsible for it. It's just one of those unfunded mandates passing the buck down the line. So the County Commissioners Association, County Mayors Association, and County Road Superintendents Association are all vehemently opposing this. And so I just want you to be aware of it. We may be needing to do some support resolutions on things of this nature because it would be a big cost if this happens. If you have the opportunity to talk to our state representative or state senator, please do so and tell them this is something that we just cannot see happen. The other thing, and we're going to go into it in great detail in the Education Committee meeting. I've had conversations with Dr. Satterfield about it, and there's a proposal by the governor. It's actually coming from the governor's office to basically, they're saying, take a look at BEP. No, what they're wanting to do is do away with BEP. And they're wanting to go from a site-based funding to a student-based funding, or a student-centered, I think is the terminology that they use. All of this is coming out of a think tank in Florida called Excel in Ed. I have been to their website. It was formed by Jeb Bush and former Education Secretary Cantor. They're pitching this to a lot of counties, a lot of states, well, a lot of states primarily. Don't think anyone has actually signed on to it except a few states that solely fund education from the state level. They have no county involvement with it whatsoever. And the questions that we raised or that were raised were, well, we're not sure, we'll get back to you. Well, that's yet to be worked out. How is the county funding part going to be handled? You know, what are the minimum standards going to be? So it's very much in the work, and it's whether you're in favor of it or not, it's a backdoor way of bringing vouchers, the voucher system, into our education system in Tennessee. That's all this is. They can call it student-centered, but it's vouchers. And it would impact us, there again, it would impact us greatly, depending on the fine print. But the general consensus of everything that I've seen and everyone that I've talked to, I talked to Wesley about it for a long time. And it will benefit the large systems and it will hurt the small systems. Now, where do y'all think we're at? You know, we're a small system. So we need to monitor this. We're going to take it up in the Education Committee and try to get y'all some of this hard and fast information that I was given at this meeting. It's, you know, if you look at what the state put out in their BEP Blue Book, you know, to change it, it's cut and paste from what Excel Ed in Florida has. The ideas are coming from here. They're not coming from our state. They're coming from another state. So I just wanted to let you know that we're going to have to deal with that. And it's going to be, it's probably one of those things, and Landon, you might can correct me. It's one of those things that may on the face look good, and immediately you're not going to see any difference, but could affect us greatly down the road. And I just feel like that we need to really stay on top of this issue. And just want to let you know that was coming. TCA meeting was good. There was a lot of good information. There was other things. I came back, went over everything with the mayor. He wasn't able to go Monday. And I I was elected again to the, serve on the board of directors for the County Commissioners Association. So it puts us in a little closer loop on what's going on and what's coming down the pike. And I will always try to represent the county well and share the information that I can glean to y'all. And I just wanted to make you aware of that. Commissioners, did y'all have anything else? Any questions?
Yes. I got something else.
Okay.
Other night when we had our EMS meeting, Mr. Carmen gave us a real long talk, and it was very good about they've lost 2 EMTs or paramedics, and they're fixing to lose 2 more. And a lot of like Galton, Lebanon, all of them are going, not even in a budget time, they're raising their price, going and raising the budget on pay for these people because Metro is getting them and they're losing them. They've got, Galton has 2 or 3 stations already done shut down because they ain't got the personnel for them. And this out here, it's going to be 4 people here by the first of the year. They'll be, you know, and they can't get nobody because we're way below, and understandable, we below because of small county. And just something that budget finance, I just want to let you know it's going to be coming. But anyway, Mr. Kerr told me today, or yes, last night, that the state, it hasn't been signed by the governor yet, but they want all school boards to be bipartisan. You heard anything on that?
I think there was.
Like now, we don't have that. Everybody just runs.
There is legislation proposed that if any one party calls for a primary, used to be that it had to be the 2 major parties agreed that they wanted to have a primary in the county. Now, any one party can call for it, and it doesn't even have to be the major party. It could be the bucket thumper party could call for a primary, and you'd have to have a primary. They also, where school boards had specifically been exempt from filing or declaring parties or be nonpartisan. In this session that they had, they did pass something that school board had to be declare a party to run for school board. I may have misquoted that. Mayor, did you have any information on that? I think that's what came out of it. That's my understanding of it. I may have that wrong, but that's my understanding. I think that's referring to what you're talking about. And that, again, that was something that we were going to try to talk about in Education Committee.
Okay.
When we get there with it. One thing that was brought to my attention, I know we transitioned into the direct deposit thing, and I know I talked to Stephen and Renee and Amy, you know, how that went and everything. They said that they had one person that had given them the wrong routing number or something. They got that fixed. But I'd gotten an email from one of our department heads, and I think some of y'all might have received it as well. And it gets back to this old question that we've kicked around so many times before. What the EMS people or some of the people received was just a 40-hour week, even though they traditionally don't get paid a 40-hour week. They get paid so much overtime. And my remembrance is that we have talked about this. I haven't went back and tried to review my notes or anything, but I thought that this issue had been raised when we were talking about doing this, and we had said that we wanted them to receive what their normal 2-week pay would be, or what their average 2-week pay would be, not just a base pay. Mayor, can you give us any insight? Mr. Beatty, you're here. You may want to jump in on this. I don't know I know this has affected y'all greatly. I'm sure you have some thoughts. If you want to share them, I'd be glad to hear them. One or the other of you jump in.
I was gonna say, I would have to go back and see what those discussions were. I don't remember that being said or stated, but it could have been.
I just remember the conversation being, everybody would receive their normal paycheck in the beginning. And then when the letters came out and the paychecks, a couple of paychecks before the bonus check was to come out, it would have what you were going to get for your bonus check. And a lot of my employees were coming to me saying, this is not what I normally make. So I can tell you, a supervisor lost $650.32. Paramedic lost $628.32. An EMT lost $544.32, and a basic lost $502.32 that they normally would have gotten on a normal 2-week pay period. Because our pay period is obviously working 24/48 is typically 120 hours of pay period or 96 hours of pay period. One shift will fall with a short check every pay period, and the 2 other shifts will do the 120 hours, and it just rotates as the year goes on. But that's the loss, which is about around 50% of their paycheck. So two of my employees are their spouses. So they didn't have another full income coming from a spouse working another job. So they completely lost half of their income over this bonus check on that pay period.
I would push back on the notion that they lost anything. This is an addition to what they were going to get throughout the year. This was something that's technically it's not a bonus. It was to compensate so that they didn't go an entire month without a check, but they didn't lose anything. Actually, at the end of the year, they're going to make more than they would have. They're getting paid basically 80 hours that they didn't work at the end of the year. So I would argue they didn't lose anything. Now, did they get paid what their normal 2-week check would have been? No, they got paid what's in their file, which said they were hired for a base of 40 hours a week. Now they get scheduled over that, but they're not guaranteed any overtime above that. But again, this issue is going to Budget and Finance, is my understanding from the emergency services. This was sent to Budget and Finance to discuss, so it's already gone to the committee that's supposed to address it.
Like I say, I may be remembering this entirely wrong, but I think our intention and the figures that we were given as to what this was going to cost were based on what our 2-week payroll typically is, was it not?
It was based on the normal hours. It was based on what they were hired to work. And so most people, that's 80 hours a week, and that came from their employee file. But again, this is something, if you want that information, we're working to get it all together. We will have it together in time for the Budget and Finance Committee.
I don't think you understood what I was saying. I think the numbers that we were presented in Budget and Finance and for the commission when we voted to do this were those figures, not my understanding at the time that was what our payroll is for a 2-week period, not what it would be if it was vacation or base pay or anything like that. We asked specifically, how much is our payroll on a pay period? You know, is it 150? Is it 151? Is it 155? Whatever the figure was, that's the figure that we went with. Maybe the question wasn't stated right. Maybe it was misunderstood. I'm not going to make those arguments. I feel like that we've been down this road so many times that I don't know what we need to do. I know we've talked about it in this personnel with this wage study and all these kind of things as to it. To me, it's a fairness issue. You know, we've told these people we're going to give you 2 weeks pay what your normal pay is. You're not gonna have to wait. You're getting an extra paycheck. And we didn't say you're getting an extra paycheck, but we're not going to give you a full paycheck. You know, and I just feel like I hate to use the term that we've got egg on our face on this matter, but in my opinion, we do. And I'm not saying that anybody did anything wrong. I'm not pointing a finger at them. I just don't feel like this was the intention of what we were doing when we said we were going to do this. And I can understand where they would absolutely feel slighted And I don't want to lose anybody over that. It's going to cost us far more than what the $200 or $300, $400. If we have to go out and hire somebody new, I mean, I don't want, you know, I feel like we're creating a problem when we're already have a problem trying to retain personnel. Would you agree with me with that, or am I in left field with that?
Absolutely. Retention's been an ongoing problem for like over a year now. And when you feel like you've been mistreated because everybody else in the county got what they normally make on a 2-week pay period, and then you get half of what you normally make on a 2-week pay period, I mean, how would you feel?
Let me make a point here. We worked on this for years, and it took me a minute to figure out about the type of job that they do and the hours that they normally work. You don't have any people that are in this category that have less, that don't work overtime. They normally work overtime every time they get a check. So that is their normal check. And it's just the nature of that job of 24 on and so many hours off. That is a normal work week for those people, which includes overtime pay. And so I understand what they're saying. And so I think that was the intention all along from this body, was that you get that extra normal compensation. And that's what you have asked for. And so I did ask Mr. Carmen, and then I said, can you bring us the figures to the Budget and Finance Committee of what that looks like? I think you guys have worked on that. And so I think we can correct this, but I understand that's how they normally work. And it includes overtime. It's not like overtime is something special that you get every once in a while. It is for many jobs, but not that one, not that department. That's just normally how they work.
And you'll see our hourly rates fairly low. We probably will make less than the director of where the dogs are going to go, but the overtime makes up for that. So, you know, you can't really look at our hourly rate. You have to look at our annual salary in the end and then kind of work that out and backwards to figure out what your true hourly rate is.
And so we really have two issues coming before Budget and Finance as it relates to the emergency service of the ambulance. Not only do we have that issue to tackle, but we also, you can watch the news and hear about it. I mean, you got shortages around us in personnel, and it's almost like who can you pull and recruit to work for you? And so, I mean, we're kind of at the end of the stick here. I mean, we're just ones that people are pulling good employees away from us to go work somewhere else for more money. And yes, in a typical environment, you would do that as a budgetary item, but we're facing unusual times. I mean, you have somebody that wants to work as an animal control and they want $15 an hour. And so we're going to have to consider that. I mean, we're seeing it across the board. And the work, I think in this case, when it goes to Budget and Finance, we need to be proactive instead of reactive. We don't want to wait till we lose any more employees before we decide to do something about it.
So I guess what we need to do, what I hear is that we want Budget and Finance to look at this and make a decision, you know, as to what we need to do to rectify this if we feel like we've wronged them. Some of us probably feel like we didn't. Some probably feel like we did. I think that's where it needs to go. Anybody disagree with me or have better suggestion? I'd be glad to hear it, Mayor.
It was already sent to Budget and Finance from the Personnel Committee, so it's already in front of that committee.
Yes, sir, I understand that, but this issue that has been raised can certainly be looked at again. I did not accuse anybody of doing anything wrong, other than I don't think that this was, you know, the intent. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just would like.
I made no statement about saying somebody said they've done something wrong. I just said it was sent from one committee already to Budget and Finance, so it's already in front of them. So it doesn't require any action from this committee to send it to Budget and Finance. My understanding is it's already in front of Budget and Finance because it came from another committee sent to Budget and Finance, and that was the motion that was made at that committee.
Your committee? Emergency services? Okay. But was that to
We
talk
talked
about
about
this
emergency services
specifically?
also, and I think they said that's what needed to be done as well.
Well, it's on its way.
Well, I know we talked about in employee personnel, change the
Yeah.
wording from 40-hour to a customary or normal work week or something to that effect to try to, you know, address this and what was going forward. I'm talking about looking at this issue of whether we shorted them and did not do the intentions of the commission. And even if we did what was voted on or what the letter of it said, whether we want to do anything additional. I don't know who else needs to look at it, who needs to make that decision, if it's not budget and finance. Maybe personnel needs to decide it. I don't know. I'm just saying. Okay, so we need to take this up in budget and finance and try to have some figures of what you think they were shorted and what it needs to be, a dollar amount to try to rectify it or whatnot. And is there any other departments that were affected this way? That anybody contacted anyone from any of the other departments? Mayor, did you have anybody that raised this concern or questions?
Well, there are sometimes people in the sheriff's department that could have got overtime, and Amy in my office could have got overtime, and they didn't get it out of there. So is this something we're going to extend to all the departments, or is it going to be just for the EMS?
I think it would need to apply to all the departments. If you're going to do it for one, we're going to do it for all. It's a fairness issue.
But as a general rule, there's only this department, maybe some of the sheriffs, that is their that happens normally all 52 weeks of the year. The other departments, if there's an overtime, it's an exception instead of the general rule. Now, the sheriff's department may be in the same boat.
That's exactly what I was fixing to say on that case right there. The sheriff's department might be the one that we work on. We've had the sheriff tell us that they have a normal overtime amount. He's come in here and told us that piece. This is a normal piece, not okay, we needed an extra few hours this week and here. This is something that is, I see what you're saying on the fact that this is a regular piece. When you made the statement that you don't look at your hourly pay based on your 40-hour week, you look at your hourly pay and your employees based on what a normal paycheck would be with the overtime included. I kind of understand where your point is. Up front, I really honestly look at this as you're complaining about a bonus, honestly. But no, I see what you're saying exactly in this case right here at this point. And I think that would only be a department that is required some of those longer hours, like our sheriff's department works a 12-hour shift, where you work a 24-hour shift.
I can say is that we'll look into it and try to see if you can get us some figures of what you think it would take to rectify it. We'll take a look at it.
Appreciate it.
I have to say I will apologize because I do not feel like that was the intent of the commission at the time, and maybe we didn't make that clear enough, but we'll try to make it right if we need to. Thank you, Mr. Beatty. Okay, commissioners, anything else? Public comments? Ms. Baker.
I just have a question. Do all resolutions or ordinances, do they have to come before this body before any action can be taken on them by the county commission?
I did not. Give me your question again.
Do resolutions and ordinances have to come to this committee before they can go to the full body for any action to be taken on them?
I'm not sure whether they have to. They typically do. The major purpose of this committee is for the mayor to give us what he is presenting to the commission in the way of resolutions and ordinances and policy changes and things like that. The main purpose of the committee is not necessarily to approve or disapprove a resolution or ordinance, but to send it to the proper committee. Many times there are things that we will decide whether we want it to go to multiple committees or one committee or no committees, that will take it to the full body. I think that's the stated purpose of the committee and what we tried to do. We don't necessarily approve or disapprove anything. We try to steer it to the proper route to get to the full body. If we feel like it doesn't need to go to committee, then it doesn't. It goes to the full body. I don't know that we've ever had anything that this committee decided did not go to the full body. I can't recall of anything that we did that on, but as far as everything having to be before the steering committee, I think the things that would need question as to what committee they would want to go to would typically be what goes, and the things that the mayor presents that comes up, or that any commissioner comes up. Any commissioner can write a resolution, write an ordinance, and present it to the full body. I mean, certainly you as a commissioner have the right to author a resolution or ordinance as you see fit. But the main purpose of this committee is to try to move things to committee, in the proper committee that they should go to. Does that answer your question?
So to be clear, you're saying that no, resolutions and ordinances do not have to come before this body before they're sent on to the full body, correct? I'm not saying you have to take action on them, but a resolution or an ordinance, before it goes to the full body, does it have to come here first? This body may not have to take action on them, but does it have to be presented here first?
No.
I have one more question. Could you tell me what authority does the steering committee have to create a subcommittee? Is there a resolution, or I just don't understand what authority you have to create a subcommittee? Is it in the charter?
I don't think this body voted to authorize a subcommittee. They said that we would send it to the full body to decide whether we wanted to have a subcommittee, and we would have a resolution prepared for the full body to decide whether it was necessary, needed, and wanted to be. But we did not establish that study committee. We was asked to put it on the agenda to do that. That will be our decision at our regular commission meeting for the full body to make a decision on.
So this body voted to create a resolution for a subcommittee? Is that what you're saying? I'm unclear of what the motion was and how I understand the county commission can, as a full body, can create a subcommittee. I just don't understand why so I misunderstood. The steering committee did not approve a subcommittee. Is that right?
We approved to send to the full body the possibility of the formation of a study committee. And I think the motion was, I mean, Ms. Atwood can restate the motion as she has it recorded, but my understanding of what we did was that going to try to put together a study committee, going to give you some names of people for you to either approve it or disapprove it, or argue over who's on it or who's not on it, or how many's on it, or whatever you want to do with it at the regular body. Steering committee is a screening committee. It's an informational committee. It carries no weight of votes other than to send things in the right path. In times past, we called it the executive committee. There was a lot of resentment and a lot of question is that it implicated that there was a hierarchy, and we certainly have tried to get away from that, and that's one reason we changed the name. But it's mainly, the main purpose was to give the mayor an opportunity to present things to us and us to decide who needed to look at them. And certainly if you have something that you want to present to the body, write it up and, you know, we'll send it to committee or we'll send it to the full body. Like I say, I don't know that we've ever done anything other than send something to a committee for study before it goes to the body, or send it to the full body if we didn't feel like it needed committee study. Did that answer your question, or did I misunderstand your question?
Somewhat. It's clear as mud. Let's just say that. What's the motion? If you could, Ms. Atwood could reread the motion. I'm sorry, could you push your microphone and say that again?
A motion made by Gully to make a 5-member study committee for Walsh, including Walsh, Davis, and Russell, for the veteran office, and seconded by Ferguson. So basically, it is not clear to where or who is going to originate that. Can you verify that, Landon?
I think if you go back and listen to the tape, you'll also hear us discussing there in this case that I would like to include those members, not to include those members, but I'd like to include those members, if you want to clear that up as well. The intent of the motion is exactly as Mr. Jewell had stated it, that we were looking at developing a subcommittee. Someone has to make a motion to get that started. So that motion is now started, and someone, being those, Mr. Jewell, I think he said he would take that piece as well, and some others, and try to come up with a subcommittee group that would be presented for us to approve, us being the county legislative body as a whole. That is the only way that that piece can go any further. That was the exact discussion that went on. As you'll learn very well, sometimes exactly you do an awesome job, don't hear me wrong, but in that position right there, writing down the full intent of a piece and that is going to get a little deeper than what you're getting. And you need to go get into that, probably need to go get into that video to really understand where it's at and the conversation that goes in behind it, because we can take things out of context very quickly is what we can do.
Mr. Jewell, I'd like to say that I think that it may be deep down on page whatever, but I do think committees can create subcommittees to study individual. I think we did that in emergency services a year or so ago. And I don't know if it's written in the law or not, but I know that we've done that some in the past. And we all have to keep the eye on the ball here a little bit. Committees or subcommittees are just simply there to make recommendations. We do not carry the weight of a resolution. We do not carry the weight of an ordinance. Those are just recommendations of bodies. That's all committees do, is they study issues, try to come up with their thoughts on it and present it to a full body when it's time to actually vote. So I think you can create subject committees. I think we've done that some in the past. So I don't want to get lost in the weeds on who can and who can't and all that. I think the intent is to try to gather information or to bring people that are in our own community together to try to study a topic, and maybe sometimes try to ask for their assistance too, like what we did tonight. So, you know, whether it was to the full body or whatever we're talking about here on the subcommittee, we're just looking to try to help people in the community reach out to each other and get good things accomplished.
Anyone else?
Yes, and you are correct, Mr. Gully. I do have to go back through those videos, because when people do get to, if you could see my notes, a lot of it. No, I'm just clarifying. There's times that even myself as a secretary and even Ms. Baker as a secretary, we do have to go back to those video clips because everybody's talking so quickly and this one's picking up and that one's picking up. So you do have to clarify. So.
Mr. Ford, we have a motion to adjourn. I have a second, Mr. Gully. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Bye. Thanks, everyone, for coming out.